You are now tuning into the Resilient Podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 42 of the Resilient Podcast. I am your host, Robert Aurelius, and today we have a special guest who I recently connected with on social media because one of her posts went viral on Twitter. Her name is Shanel Thompson, and Shanel and I connected, right away. She actually ran this year's New York City Marathon. And when I saw her photo on the feed and I seen that she had her medal in the photo and she had just completed the full marathon, it definitely made me feel good to see, a woman of color, run a full marathon here in New York. And I couldn't hesitate but reach out and congratulate her. And here we are, we're connected. And, I just mentioned that Shanel ran the marathon. So, I had a conversation with Shanel briefly before we did this episode, and I found out that not only is she a marathon runner, but she's also she's also a community advocate, a farm owner whose life embodies the true meaning of generosity and resilience. And after learning that she ran the marathon this year, I had to reach out to her to learn more about her story. And one word that instantly defines her spirit. And the word that I asked her, which is her favorite, she told me the word was giver. So I'm going to dive deep with her in this episode, not just through the service or action, but through love, compassion, and purpose. And I hope that, we can hear Shanel open up about her journey, her connection to nature, the endurance that comes from within, and the power of showing up for others while staying true to herself, based upon the conversation that I had from from what I gathered from having a personal conversation with her. I noticed that she's very family oriented, and I believe that. And Shanel, if you can just, I've already told people what your name is, but if you could just let people know where you're from, what else do you do? Just take it away.
So my name is Shanel, and born and raised a New Yorker, born and raised in Brooklyn, moved to Long Island. Now I live in the Bronx. I've been living in the Bronx now for 7.5 years, and the Bronx babies. But I am a runner. I am a community effort person who, should I start with my marathon running? So yes, 26.2 miles, 5 boroughs, 5 bridges. How do you complete it, right? And when we started talking about what giver is, we can start with being a giving person. For me, is I come from a giving family. My grandmother, she adopted people and took them in. And so that was the first notice of me understanding how to be a giver, where you can take people in and just raise them as your own and make them better than what they first started in. So she had adopted some kids and took them in, and just seeing that and was just like the kickoff. And then my mom is a very giving person. Like, if you come to my mom's house, you're never going home with a empty stomach. She's making sure you eat. She's making sure you have something to drink. Like, just watching these women and even my dad, and just seeing how I was raised with just giving tips and advice on how to become a better woman, a strong woman in life, and just venturing out throughout my journey. And so when it comes to giving, I like to give that energy of what I'm raised on to my family, my friends, my peers. and now the community. And so even with that being said, we have a family farm in Roscoe, New York, where I grow organic fruits and vegetables and serve to low middle income families and homeless people, and just in general anyone that's in need. And giving for me is that is like my primary focus, is to always give back. And I come from that. I know what it's like not to have anything. I know what it's like to have nothing. And so I had a house fire, I lost everything. So just looking at that experience for me and knowing that the effort of of giving back to someone who doesn't have something is something that I'm very good at, and I love to talk about that.
Okay, so we're talking about the topic giver,
Hmm.
um, and you explained why you feel like you want to be a giver. Your mom, your grandmother. So, what does that word giver actually personally mean to you?
It means don't look for nothing in return. You're doing something that's genuine from the heart. A lot of things that I do, I look for nothing in return. I just ask for the love to be reciprocated, because that means it costs you nothing to give, right? And that could be your time, that could be, your space, your energy. It could be a lot of things. So for me, it's just giving something and not looking for something in return is what it means for me personally.
Mhm. So we talked about the marathon. And congratulations on that.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on running those 26 point something miles that you mentioned.
26.2.
Um, 26.2. And when it comes to the marathon, what did that experience teach you about yourself and about your limits?
The marathon, I first want people to know, is honestly, as a viewer, as a watcher and spectator last year compared to being in it, it is still the best day of the year. It is my favorite day of the year, besides my birthday. But it is honestly a day where people really unite and just push you. The marathon changed me completely. I never thought I could do something in that manner, due to the fact that I had a first, I don't think I could do that. And then I had a community of friends that I run with that pushed me and inspired me to show me that you can do this. And so for the marathon, I started, I had a runner's block back in February after I had ran the Lifetime Miami marathon, and that was my first travel marathon. And that gave me a strength and a push to know that I can travel now to run these races. I can travel now to win these medals, and that was an experience alone within itself. So preparing for this marathon, it was just, literally taking my mind out of the runner's block, because I did stop running for a little while. And
Okay.
when I got chosen for this, I was part of the 2% with getting accepted into this marathon, which is like a needle in a haystack. I am part of the 2%, and that's rare, picked out of the lottery. So
Wow.
just alone that inspired me to go do this and know that I can't back out, because this is a once in a lifetime thing, and you never know if you're going to be able to do it again. And so this marathon preps me mentally. I am a very disciplined, ambitious person and goal oriented. So if I say I'm going to do something, I am going to do it. My word is my bond, and I stick by it. And I knew that this was going to be something big in my life that I was going to work on achieving, and knew that there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Running this marathon changed my life mentally, physically, and emotionally, because not a lot of people can complete 26.2 miles. It is a mental thing for sure, but it also is a physical thing, knowing that if your body is capable to finish a marathon. And so I knew that I could do these small runs, but could I, and what would I be able to complete this big one? And I did. I started small by doing small 8, 10s, and knowing that this was coming up, I started layering the miles that I wanted to accomplish each weekend. And for the past a couple of weeks before the marathon, I had ran 20 to 22 miles within within 2 week spans of each other leading up to that marathon. And I said, if I can do 22, then I know I can do 26. And that's what made me finish this marathon. And I'm so thankful that I got to complete that.
Okay, on that topic, you talked about preparing mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Running a marathon takes incredible mental endurance, right? So I wanted to ask you, how do you prepare yourself mentally for
Absolutely.
challenges, both on the course and in life?
So I keep mental notes. I also follow a lot of motivational pages pages that motivate you to lock in. And I did a lot of strength training throughout this entire year, just working on my legs because I have osteoarthritis. So I have basically arthritis already in my knees. So I need to keep the mobility going. So how did I prepare for this mentally? Was just talking to myself every day and saying, you got something big to prepare for. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Looking at quotes saying, don't say you can't, you can if you try. And I am one of those people that I don't like to live in regret. And so even if I fail, at least I tried something. And I am very big on that. No matter what I do, what I say, what I touch, if I at least try something, I know that I gave it my all. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But at least I gave it my all. So that was something I mentally prepared for myself. And also saying, like, what's for you won't pass you by, and this too shall pass. So what's for me was this marathon, and it won't pass me by with just like getting locked in and knowing that if I put my mind and my effort and my physical body into knowing that this is something big that I need to accomplish, I will do it. So talking to yourself, motivating yourself, because you are the order of your operation when it comes to your life and your body. That is something that I take very seriously, and that is how I apply it to my everyday living.
I love that. That's a good response.
Thank you.
So, we talked about, on the phone, when we had a personal conversation prior
Yes.
to the episode, you talked about the organization that you had created with a bunch of ladies.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, because I know you've made such an impact in your community, what inspired you to dedicate your time and energy to giving back?
What inspired me to give my time and energy was knowing that it's bigger than me. I could start off with saying that, like, no mission is all about me. It's about my people. And how can I help people? So I start off with that saying that the mission is always bigger than me, and that the goal was always to set out as in to donate. And how can people donate to my company? How can people invest in my company? This has been because I'm only 3 years as a business woman in this industry, and I know if anyone has tips, I am always welcome to knowing how to, especially farmers, with connecting with farmers and knowing as a Black woman in her late 30s, how to, navigate through that journey about being a farm owner and then also taking care of your community. The mission was always to do better, be better, and seek out people that need your supplies. And my family, we came together with this idea when we had a whole bunch of land from a relative that passed. And how can we use up this land? We have so much green, it's 30, like, how can we use up all of this space? What can we do? And it just came to us that we first started just growing crops for the house and just, like, seeing what we can do. And then it just was, okay, so we how can we apply this now to bigger people? How can we apply this to other people? And I've always wanted to give back to the community. I just didn't know what space and how, and also what time I was going to be able to do that. But giving back has always been my thing. So the fact that I was granted this opportunity to do this was such a blessing. And I've learned so much about dirt, soil, getting my hands dirty, because if you look on my Instagram page, you will see that I do get my hands dirty. That, yes, I look glams up now, but this girl gets her hands dirty. So whatever you do in life to others reverts back to you and how you are as a person. And I always want to live by that. How will you be remembered before you leave this earth? And taking care of people, giving people goods, giving people money, to help in general, not just with the farm business, but just in general as a friend. has always been something when it comes to um, with the farm business, and that's how I look at that. That's how I got my start.
That's good. I like that. So I'm gonna ask you one question before we go on a quick break.
Yes,
Um, and this question has to do with your farm. So, you own a farm, which is
yes,
such
I
a,
do.
unique part of your story, right?
Yes.
So my question to you in regards to that is, how did that journey begin, and what lessons has farming taught you about life and resilience?
Oh wow. Okay. So the first part is um again, we had lost a family member, and then we had this land. And so we started it. I started this business 3 years ago, literally like a baby. And just started looking into first how to get your company started. How do you get into the business? And so I'm still learning about that because I'm only 3 years in, and according to people, I'm still like a baby in this, which is fine. But just knowing how we were gonna use up this space, and eventually we will use it up also by building things as well. And but the crops was just a first trial and error, just to see how we can do it with just family members, right? Because I mean, I have plants in my house that I could show you, and I have peppers and scallions and green onions in my house, but that was just for me. And then when we realized that we started that we had a lot of corn and we were growing it, we was like, we could really do something here. Like we could really apply this besides the family. And that's how we started looking into, okay, let's look into nonprofits. Let's look into community based. I used to be a weekend reporter, and so I live in the Bronx. I know what the Bronx the lack of food the lack of food and how expensive food is out here. And just because I live here, I'm speaking specifically about the Bronx because I have explored the areas and the parts of seeing soup kitchens and seeing people wait out in the cold for food. And I hate that, that's also something that really grinds my gears is I really hate that I see people on the streets in need of food because it's something that is a necessity. And that bothers me that, this is a human being on the streets with no food. Like that's insane. And so that really makes me, upset and sad, and also why I wanted to apply that method of growing the farm business and giving goods to people, whether it was just a small little bag of something or something that we made from there. But just knowing that that lack of food in this city, in this area, and I just wanted to find out all the resources that I need when it comes to looking at these pantries, seeing soup kitchens, these churches, and also how can I apply that, because that is my next mission for next year is to apply more churches, more soup kitchens, and connecting with these people in my community that I live here. I want to take care and make an effort, especially as a young person, how and making an impact, because I could be doing anything, which I am with running, but I could be doing something besides that, and that's taking care of the community. And that's the community part for the second part of the question is that, just seeing people with no food. It just makes me really sad that we live in a world where people really don't care, or people who are also homeless people, because you don't know everyone's story on why they're homeless. That there are reasons why they are there, and it's not because someone doesn't care. Maybe they had something detrimental to them that they just
Mhm.
couldn't bear, and the streets was all they knew. So I just look at people outside of what we think of why they're homeless and just think about it. It's probably something deeper in that. But taking care of people and giving people food is my main priority.
I like that. I come from pretty much the same. My grandmother, her story, which I've shared on this podcast several times, started back in the motherland, Dominican Republic, where she was fully aware that the island, which was once called Hispaniola, was now being shared by the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And she got in trouble with I believe the government at the time for helping people across the border in Haiti, eat, because she used to tell people, well, the reason why I help these people is because If they cross over the border, sometimes they get killed, sometimes they get tortured, sometimes something bad happens to them and they don't make it back home.
Right.
And she said that she was just sick and
Right.
tired of seeing people not making it back home. Like if a mother came over the border to try to get food for her kids, she probably didn't make it back, or she was probably tortured and whatnot to get those things. And my grandmother always felt that that was an injustice, and she stood at the border a lot, just feeding people until she couldn't do it anymore, because
Wow.
eventually people started finding out that she was becoming popular because of what she was doing. And even though she was doing something good in a lot of people's eyes, it was still seen as something negative by the dictator that was running the country at the time and whatnot. And when that story was passed down to my family, everybody was like, wow, she earned her nickname Mamasa, which is actually stands for mother of all moms, because she took care of a lot of women, and she took care of a lot of men as well too. But a lot of women learned from her, and I believe that's how my mother ended up being the way she is, where my mom loves feeding people. My mom, sometimes her plates can be,
hefty. I'm
yeah,
sure.
and
Make
and
sure
and
you
it's
save
not.
me a plate.
Yeah, it's not a plate for one. It's usually a plate for three or four. And it's crazy how she still feels that she could feed those portions to people, once they become adults. And I always tell my mom, I was like, Mom, as I got older, especially with being diagnosed with diabetes, I said to her, I got to be careful with my intake of food. I got to be careful with the carbs and everything else. But my mom's always been generous, and she gets it from my grandmother. I've also been generous as well too. But
Same.
making sure, speaking about, in the whole topic of the marathon, a few years ago, I remember Alicia Keys was running the marathon, and I remember when she passed by, and I was so happy to see her. And she was literally running for the charity that she was a part of, called what is it called, Keep a Child Alive, right?
Oh yeah.
And things like that is what I stand for. So I'm always big with contributing. I love contributing. I love advocating. I also love volunteering. In times like this, like in the month of November, I have
Oh
done,
yeah.
turkey drives at places, organizations that I worked with. I've always been big on that. So, making sure that someone doesn't face poverty, or making sure that someone doesn't go to bed with a empty belly, is something that I've always cared about. And one thing I've always said to people is, I wish that I was wealthy enough in this world to feed every single person that's starving, but at the same time, I'm thankful that I've never known what it is to starve, because I've had a family that's always provided. And if I ever was hungry, it's because it was by choice, but there was always
Right.
food around.
Absolutely.
And this is why, even when it comes to food, I like, even if I'm gonna discard something, I always either, if there's nobody around for me to give it to, I usually, kiss it, and like a piece of bread or something, and thank God for that piece of bread, because I know that there's somebody out there that would love to have that, at least that piece of bread. So I'm very mindful of that. I'm very mindful of throwing food away,
Right.
making food, making food go to waste. And even when I'm with friends and people that I know, and I see them just discarding food, I'm like, listen, man, can't do that. That's why I'm very happy and proud of all these programs
Right.
out here
Exactly.
out here in New York City, and even around the world, around the country, where there's restaurants that partner up with hotel, hospitals and places and shelters, of course, to make sure that nobody you know
Absolutely.
doesn't go without eating. So before we go on a quick break, I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Nala Health.
Yes.
This might be beneficial for you, Shanel, because I know that you run marathons, and then after marathons, you got to recover. So, folks, when you visit nalahealth.com,
Yeah.
which is right here on the bottom, nalahealth.com, you are going to either find an assessment, and my guys over there, Victor and the crew, they will be able to better assess you and your needs. But there's a lot of formulas on that website. There's CBD, there's CBN, there's CBG, there's all these type of things to help with recovery, as far as running a marathon, right? Surgeries,
Yeah,
recovering from
definitely.
addiction. So there's formulas on there for like, insomnia, right? People that can't sleep, and inflammation for people that, sometimes suffer from a lot of inflammation. And, one of my favorites is actually anxiety. Sometimes I suffer from social anxiety. So sometimes when I know that I'm gonna have a big day, I take a few drops, put it in my coffee or put it in my tea, and it helps me get out through the day. So when you visit that website, nalahealth.com, just use my code TRP10 to receive 10% off of your purchase. And this is not just a one-time thing. This is every single time you go on there, you just, save 10%, but you got to make sure you put it in the checkout in the, TRP10 to receive that discount. So we're going to take a brief break. We'll be back in about 30 seconds and we'll continue the rest of this interview. So I will see you guys in a few seconds. Okay, welcome back to the Resilient Podcast, episode 42 with Shanel Thompson, who's in studio today talking to me about being a giver. This month is very special to me and very personal because, number one, this month was originally the month that was planned for the release of the documentary, The Resilience Project, which I have been working on for about a year and a half. We did push it back a little bit to December, and that's because post-production is not easy. And, when Diego and I originally thought about, shutting the cameras and wrapping it up, there was still a few things I wanted to do. And there was things in mind that I had been thinking about for such a long time. And, I was nervous if I should do it or not. But then when I finally decided to go through with it, I called Diego up and I said, listen, we're not done with this documentary. And he says, okay, you do know it's going to take a little longer if the longer we shoot. And I said, sure, no problem. So, this documentary is a story for everyone who has seen the trailers. The trailers are out now. If you go on youtube.com, you actually visit our YouTube channel, The Resilience Tribune, and the Resilient Podcast, you will see that trailer there. You will also see it on social media platforms. It's on my Twitter. It's on my Facebook. It's on my Instagram. I poured a lot of myself into this documentary. I've always wanted to do a documentary about something. I never thought it would be about me. But, when this podcast was created, I wanted to let people know what inspired me to start this podcast and why we're here. And, the Resilience Tribune is about to be, in a few days, it's about to turn a year old. And it's a publishing platform that I created last year for people to share their stories about resilience. And, I would love someday, Shanel, for you to write an article on the Resilience Tribune. Because I'm sure aside from everything we've heard about you so far, there's so much more to your story.
That would be wonderful.
And folks, you can actually, do that by visiting TheResilientTribune.com. ResilientTribune.com will be right here on the screen. And, you can watch the podcast there. For the people that watch it on YouTube, you can also check out like the latest news, look at the documentary trailer on there, and you can also publish your article on there. So, if you're interested in publishing an article on the Resilience Tribune, folks, it's a monthly story that's highlighted and featured on one person. Make sure you send us an email to info@ResilienceTribune.com, and your story will be submitted. Normally, I know I'm going to start doing this new thing with everyone. It's something that I've thought about doing for quite some time now, is every time I start an episode with someone, I'm going to say to them, let's talk about resilience. So we have mentioned resilience briefly here. And now that we're on the subject of resilience, Shanel, I wanted to ask you, what does resilience mean to you? And how has it shown up throughout your life and journey? And take it away.
So, resilience for me is I like to first say I don't take no for an answer. I come from a lot of male figures in my life. And so I love that about my family, and even my peers, like my friends who also like from their perspective too. But I come from like even with my dad and my stepdad and their advice, like just knowing that as a woman, don't take no for an answer and always give your all. So with that being said, if I get knocked down, I'll get right back up and do it again. If one door closes, another door is going to open. If this was not for me, then I know something else is for me. So, resilience for me is those things, staying under pressure, staying strong under pressure. I've been knocked with so much that you would have to really get to know me. I'm like an onion, I have layers. So you would really have to get to know me to understand what I've been through and know that what I've been through in this journey of my life has prevailed and kept me afloat, and just seeing my efforts and still standing strong with all the things that I've accomplished. My master's degree, which I just got this year,
Congratulations.
thank you. And just in business administration, just pursuing that. I could have stopped with the bachelor's, but I did always want to pursue more. Me starting with races, I at first just wanted to run, right? I was back in high school, I ran freshman and sophomore year and then stopped running. Never picked up back running again until a couple of years ago. I got off of work working in media, and there was a Nike store, and every Wednesday at 5:30 they would just do 3 miles. And then I looked at it and said, okay, I'm gonna get on that. And for 2.5 years I ran with the Nike Run Club, which got me into learning more about connecting with people and networking. And so networking got me with running people, running friends, running sister friends now who encouraged me to do races, which I thought I never could do, right? Because that never was something that I thought about. And people could tell you, oh, you can't do this, but you don't know if you don't try. And so resilience means still pursuing and not backing down and just keeping a straight line and being on that line and knowing that even if there is a different route or a different lane, as long as you keep going, you'll be all right. And that's how I feel about resilience is even if I fall, I bounce back. And sometimes I always say delayed but not denied, meaning just when you said like, you had to push back something. I was going to say that while you were doing it, but I'm now, since I'm speaking, I could let you know that delayed does not mean it's denied. So just because you put something on pause doesn't mean that you can't pick it back up. And that's what resilience means to me throughout my life and how I live my life.
I love that. That's a very nice answer.
Thank you.
Resilience means a lot of things to a lot of different people. I wanted to ask you a question when it comes to being a giver. It might be a little personal, but this question that I want to ask you is, people who give often forget to refill their own cup. And I wanted to ask you,
Yes.
how do you balance being a giver while protecting your own peace and emotional energy?
So, one, a therapist my therapist has introduced me to a lot of things. I am a people pleaser. Like, that is me.
Mhm.
I've learned not to be a people pleaser anymore. I've
Good,
learned to create boundaries. I
good.
never used to create boundaries with people because I let people sometimes get away with a lot of things until I like, okay, you have to go. It's cut off. Like, and that's across the board with anything. Like, if it's something fitness wise or something and it doesn't work out for me, then I'm just calling it quits. But for me, I used to forget to fill my own cup. I was that person.
Mhm.
I feel like the person that I am and how I am raised, I fill a lot of cups. There are a lot of people that I have inspired to do a lot of things only because they see me doing it. And I've fulfilled their cups. I can tell you notes on notes, DMs, text messages from people who just tell me how much I've inspired them to do something. So filling other people's cups is something that I'm very good at, and I love doing that. But sometimes I forget to fill my own cup. Now, how I've stepped back and did and refocused back on it is choosing me and putting me first, and learning that sometimes you might be the villain in people's stories, but you're going to have to learn that that is okay. Because
Mhm.
as long as you take care of you, your mental space, and your peace and your energy, that's what matters most. So filling back into my cup was just, running. I could use the running method because the running really did help me with getting clarity on a lot of things. And filling my own cup, meaning just pour back into me. What do I love to do? What activities that I like to do that makes me happy? And a lot of people don't know I do a lot of things by myself, and I do a lot of things activity based by myself. I go to concerts by myself sometimes. I go to movies, dinners, all that by myself. That is how I look at filling my own cup. That if you are an addition to my life, you are an add on, and I would want you to fill your cup as well. But filling my cup and what I do is now I create boundaries, and I know when to say no, and I know when to show up, and I know when I can't. But I have now put that back into me with just channeling that energy. And I always pray, and I'm a God fearing woman, love praying. And I always ask God, God, I trust you with my life. I give my life to you. Just please lead me on the righteous path. I know that whatever you have for me is for me. And if it ain't, it ain't. But I think just being prayerful and keeping God and having a very good close relationship with God has saved my life many times. So
Good.
that's how I look at pouring into my cup, is learning to create some things that you probably never did. And it will, I tweeted something the night before last, and I said, may my cup runneth over. That everything that I ever do in this world, with giving back and towards, whether that's filling friends cups and family in general, and just giving something back positively, may my cup runneth over with abundance, with joy, with happiness. And I think people need to talk about that more, is that the more cups you fill, you hope and pray that it will be given back to you and it runneth over.
Amen. Um, I have a few more questions to ask
Yeah.
you before we end this episode. It's been a very pleasant conversation with you so far. Um, um, this is also another personal question. If you could speak to your younger self, what would you tell her?
To have patience and give yourself some grace. Um, I am not a patient person. Like my friends can tell you, I am not a patient person. I've learned now to have patience, but I've learned, if I could tell my younger self something, it would be to have patience. Because I think within time, if you learn that sometimes just taking things at a certain pace and time, everything will be done correctly. And just using that time and space to grow, is I would give myself some patience in learning that not everything is going to happen right then and there. And I was used to that. I was used to things trying to get completed and things trying to get done. The younger me would just try to be patient and understand that you might have fell down the road, but just know that the journey is still going if you let it. And so I think just creating patience and understanding that not everything is going to be on my time, it's on God's time. So just have patience. And then giving myself grace, because I am naturally an overthinker. I overthink everything. I am an Olympic gold medalist. I jump to conclusions about a whole thing, a whole bunch of things. So I think giving myself grace when things don't work out some kind of manner, that I have to give myself some grace and not penalize myself for the things that I think negatively. Like sometimes I think with just not attacking the negative things that happen in my life, but just saying, you know what, this didn't, this you didn't win this race or something. I mean, well, actually, I never lost a race. So let me see. But as an example, like you may have lost a game. Let's say use basketball for a prime example. You lost this game. That doesn't mean you don't have 38 more games to go. Like just give yourself a grace. Yet, like yes, you will pay attention to the mistakes over and over. But how do you show up for those mistakes? How can you fix those mistakes? Give yourself some grace to understand that you gave your all. You tried and you tried and it didn't work out, and then that you just move forward with life and just look at things in a positive mindset. And so back then, there was a lot of L's I took. L's, if anyone want to know what L's means, lost. So I took a lot of L's back in the day, and I've changed my life. Like if you asked who I was 10 years or 15 years ago, I am that person, but I don't know that person because that person is not who's standing right here having this podcast with you. I've changed, and my dad always used to say, make sure every year is better than your last year. And I literally keep that like glue. There are a lot of quotes that my relatives, my male figures, my mom have given me. I have so many gems to drop. We might need other episodes. But that is how I live every next year. This year, at the end of the year, I always say, okay, what flaws happened this year? How do we recalibrate? How do we do better? Just giving yourself some grace. And I think I would tell my younger person, my younger self, that is to give yourself some grace, girl. It's going to be all right. You're going to be okay. This too shall pass.
I love that. I have two more questions for you. One of the first of the last questions, if you could briefly just give some advice to, people on the similar path as you, trying to find purpose in giving community or service, what advice would you give them?
Just do it. Don't live in regret. I don't live in regret. Everything I do, I'm super, and be intentional. Be intentional about the things that you do. Be intentional about the people that you connect with. Be intentional about the things and activities that you want and strive to go forward in life and move in life to be better. So I would tell the person, just do it, like the Nike ad. And I know that people think that it's just those three words, but it's actually meaningful on why they put that there. To just do it. I'd rather do something and fail than not do it at all and live in regret and say, I wish. I don't want to live my life ever saying that I wish I would have did it. I did it. Even if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. But I would tell people to do it. People have told me so many times, I wish I could run a race. I wish I could do a marathon. I can show you how many times I tell them, you can. Stop saying you can't, because you can. You have to be disciplined. You have to apply the disciplinary actions in order to do these things. And so I would tell someone, if they were ever interested in growing a farm business or seeking a marathon and wondering how to do it, I would tell them to do it. Don't live in fear. Like I am really, the only thing I'm scared of, I always say the only thing I'm scared about is God and my mom. But I don't live in fear because I love to try things. And I always will tell anyone that wants to, who I inspire, because a lot of people tell me I inspired them to do things, that I'm glad I'm glad you're inspired by something, so that me, also a Black woman, who you probably don't see that many of us in marathons as well, is capable of doing something. Is capable of traveling and running races and marathons and completing them. That people can do it if you apply to it. And that's just in general what I would leave that person with, is just do it. Don't live in regret and be fearless.
I love that. Be fearless. I'm going to ask you one more question that I ask everyone that always joins my podcast. But before I ask you that question, Shanel, can you please let everybody know very quickly where they can find you?
Yes.
Or any projects that you have that you want to push? This is your opportunity to do so.
So the only thing is, I'm hoping to get into the United Half Marathon, which is another big marathon that New York City loves. I applied this year. I apply every year, but like I do with a marathon, and I was really shocked that I got picked this year. But I am excited to get ready to get back into the groove of things with running, because I took a whole week off and just started slowly getting back into this week with recovery and stuff. But to get back into running, to hopefully get granted that wish for the United Half Marathon. And so I would be preparing for that, and then just working on what my goals is set for the farm business, who I've already connected with, because this year was the most beneficial year that I've ever had already. With the farm business, we had people from farm companies invest in, like donate seeds. We had the Knicks donate a John Starks, autograph picture, because they saw what my effort and what I'm intentional about creating. And I think those are a couple of things. The projects that I want to work on is How do I connect with other like-minded individuals that want to grow mentally, that want to go physically, spiritually, and just connecting with other like-minded individuals and just getting a bigger community of people who want to do better in this world. There's so much oversaturation with the social media and stuff and what we spend our time on that we're not intentional about the things that we want to do in a positive aspect anymore. And yes, there's a lot of things political and stuff that we, across the board. But how do we navigate that? How do we tune that out and just mute it for a little bit? Not mute. When I say mute it, I mean just like tune into muting things and connecting and finding out these navigating through this and just connecting and doing better as a community. It's all about community. If more people spent their time being more positive towards each other, nice towards each other, and giving each other patience and grace, I think we would be in a better space and energy. So my next thing is to work on this farm business, connect with like-minded individuals outside of this farm business as well, and just growing. I love to grow.
Okay, I love that. Where can people find you?
People can find me at my farm business is called Give to the Needy INC because we got that name because I love DMX. So rest in peace DMX. And the song and in that song is Stop Being Greedy, Give to the Needy. So Give to the Needy INC. And you can also find me on my other page, which is Just Like the Label. And that's a creative name because my name is Shanel, just with an S, but it's Just Like the Label. Literally JUSTLIKE THELABEL, just like the label.
I love that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And one more. Your mother's run club. Sorry, with my running girls, who I love, my sister friends. Your YOUR mothers MOTHERS run club, and we're getting that start back up soon next year.
Sounds good. So, folks, please bear with me. I have been under the weather. It is November. We have, Shanel knows this. We've had some days in New York that have been very warm. And then we've had some days that were very cold. The last few days have been cold. Yeah. So unfortunately, I took a trip. Fortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately, I took a trip to Washington, D.C. a few days ago to work on a project. It was freezing cold over there. And then unfortunately, when I came back, I've been under the weather. So this is why I've been trying to preserve my voice. But we're finally at the end of this episode. Yeah. And I can't let Shanel go until she answers this question. And okay. This is a question again that I ask everyone.
Okay.
Shanel, what is your message to the world and why?
Oh, my message to the world probably would be kind. Be kind. Be kind because you never know what people are going through. There's a lot of things in this that's happening. I think people should be more kind. If we were more kind, I think the world would be better. There's a difference between being nice and there's a difference between being kind. I categorize myself as being kind. Nice people sometimes get stepped on and stuff because they're too nice. And there's nothing wrong with being nice, but be kind. Kind is something that a lot of us lack. And I think being kind to someone can really make someone's day. So be kind. Whenever you step out of your house or wherever you're going, be kind towards others. For real.
I love that. I like those T-shirts and sweaters that I see all over the internet that people wear. I actually had a friend the other day. I was out to dinner and one of my friends who's also a regular at the restaurant that I went to, she came in with a sweater that said "Be kind."
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. You never know what anyone's going through. Right now, in the month of November, people deal with something that's called seasonal depression. Yeah. I have been talking about it with people a lot as of late. And I am actually one of those people that suffers from seasonal depression. Some years are better than others. This year, there's been some changes. There's been some transitions. This year alone, last year was very rough for me with, unfortunately, the breakup. Realizing that I wasn't going to be able to propose to the person I wanted to propose to. Then this year, I tried to be resilient and look and put everything that I went through in the back and just move forward. A lot of things have changed for me. I have the new office space. Now, I, left one brand that I was working for over a decade, and I went back to another brand that I used to work for as well too, and I'm excited about that. So sometimes change is good.
Oh yeah.
And everywhere I go, no matter where it is around the world, I always want to be kind to people because, again, you don't know what people are going through. And I try to educate people with that, to be kind. So Shanel, I want to thank you so much for being part of this episode today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, of course. Thank you for like everything that you shared with us. Just listening to you, I feel like I could listen to you all day. I know that you did say that we can grab coffee sometime and
Yeah,
talk about stuff.
I
So I
love
definitely look
that.
forward
That'd
to
be
that.
cool.
I definitely look forward to that. I definitely look forward to many more marathons that I believe you will run. I know you will continue to expand with the farm business and everything else
Yeah.
that you do. And I look forward to that. And I pray to the Lord above that He continues to bless you. You talked about abundance earlier. I love abundance. So I hope that you end this year on a positive note.
Thank you. This was
And
my actually this is my positive note right here. You reaching out to me was my abundance before this year is over. For
I
sure.
love that. I love that. So, I know you're probably getting prepared for 2026. So, even though I know I will see you at some point soon, I wish you all the best regardless of everything. Again, thank you for joining. Folks, there is another episode coming out later this month. And obviously, it's because November is a very big month for me. Again, it's the 1 year anniversary of the Resilience Tribune on the 20th. And as we get prepared for this documentary release, I will be informing you guys a little bit more about that. I'm glad where I am today, mentally and emotionally. A year ago, I was a mess. A year ago, I found myself, lost and, holding on to a box with a ring inside that I was supposed to give to someone. And unfortunately, I didn't get to do that. This year, I had the courage to do something about it and, put it in my past because, we have to move forward in order to find happiness and to find forgiveness within ourselves and whatnot. So that's part of being resilient, and I'm sure Shanel can agree with that. So I'm sure at some point, somewhere down the line, we'll have Shanel back on this podcast. And I'm sure she'll be doing much, much better than, this conversation that we had today. She'll probably be doing bigger things. I know that for a fact. So again, Shanel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Remember, folks, to always remain resilient. And if you folks ever feel like you need to reach out for anything, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available on social media. Reach out to me here on Instagram and Twitter on the Resilient Pod. And on behalf of Shanel Thompson and the Resilient Podcast, I am your host, Rob Aurelius. Thank you for tuning in one more time, and I will see you all in episode 43. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Bye-bye.